And we're live. And we're live.
Yikes.
What's going on, people? What's going on? Raphael, I saw you in the chat. What's going on with your pimp? All right, guys. So, this is going to be episode number 20 of the Chau Codes podcast. Episode 20. That's kind of crazy, actually. I didn't even think about that. But today, Riki is joining me. If you guys don't know Riki, I'll let her introduce herself because her bio is a little extensive from the last time I read it. So, Riki, go ahead and introduce yourself to the chat.
Hi, guys. How are you guys doing today? My name is Riki. I am a pre-physical therapy student. I know that's like unheard of in this channel. But I graduated with my bachelor's in kinesiology, minor in computer science this past January. And yeah, I'm right now self-taught developer, a front-end developer. I did back-end in college, which we will talk about today. And yeah, trying to get into the world of freelancing for web design development. Somewhere along those lines. And I'm also a certified Justin Chau flamethrower. Because I like to roast Justin here and there. You guys probably have seen that if you're in the Discord, but yeah.
It's actually like tilting sometimes, you know what I mean? Like it's unbelievable. It's actually unbelievable. Okay, but there we go. So yeah, Riki's gonna be joining me. We're gonna be talking about mainly the self-taught versus CS degree debate, since me and Chris kind of went over it, got a little controversial, and it's like one of those big debates that a lot of people have in the community. Some people lean more to one side than the other, and then sometimes it can get heated. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Like it gets a little froggy, and like I just wanted to talk about it. Obviously, I'm going the self-taught route 100%. I didn't go to school at all in regards to computer science or web development for that matter. And Riki, like Riki said, she went there. She got her minor in it. So she has that experience, but she also has a self-taught experience. So I think she'll have a good perspective, I would say, in terms of like comparing the both and, you know, being in both of those realms at the same time, or at some point in her life she was in it. So for those of you guys who are listening to the podcast after this is going to be live, so we can potentially do some Q&A with the live chat, and then you will hear that as well. So don't get confused if we were talking to people that are not me or Riki. It is just us talking to the live chat once this thing goes up later on the on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. So let's get started. So Riki.
Yes.
Computer science degree. Minor. Let's just get it out the gate. Let's just since you're a certified flamethrower, I'm gonna let you flame or potentially flame on your CS degree. Did you enjoy it? Like, was it worth it? Do you feel like now that you're at where you're at right now with freelance, or what? What's up? Let me know. Talk to me.
Oh God, that's a loaded question. Was not ready for that one.
It is. Look, we straight off the bat, we just kind of, you know, we just gotta hit out strong. You feel me?
All right. Well, if I were to flame my CS degree, I would flame it for being so heavy on math. I mean, I get it, you know, especially with computer science and engineering and everything, math is so essential. It's a fundamental part of it. And I get it. At the end of the day, I get it. But also, just from like a university perspective, and I know it's very different for like front end, because I guess for front end, the supplemental courses and classes and things like that would be like design, you know, and all that stuff. But for the back end side, it's math. And that I don't even know if I can flame it, because it flamed me. It like roasted me in undergrad. I took linear algebra and I took discrete math, which actually wasn't that bad. Discrete was not that bad, but like linear, it was just a lot. And I think computer science in general is a very heavy loaded course major. I don't know, you know, what you would call it, but that department in general is just super heavy loaded. Besides, you know, the typical college scenery of being stuck in like the library for long hours and things like that. there's a lot that people expect out of you, just in terms of like standards, and like we're not going to get into the cultural aspect of it. That's going to be for another podcast. But being a girl in the industry, that's another topic for another day.
I
But
didn't
yeah.
know we was going that route. Okay.
But I mean, at the same time, I'm very lucky to have gone to a college that had a smaller class size, and so we were all pretty close to each other, and it was pretty good. But I think in general, if you're going to go the computer science degree route, I think if anything, it's kind of like a shortcut, because you do it for 4 years. I mean, given that you are, doing just computer science, you do it for 4 years. And the way my school was like structured, after your sophomore year, you're kind of expected to get an internship. It's not like required or anything, but 9 times out of 10, people get internships after their sophomore year. And so you kind of build those skills for the first 2 years, and you get your internship. And every summer after that, you have an internship until you graduate and you get a good job. And just for you guys to know, I went to school in like the Portland metro area. So this could be very different depending on where you are at. But Portland had a big kind of like Amazon. They had like a big Amazon workforce. I don't know. They were kind of bringing everybody from the computer science like majors and things into Amazon. It's either Amazon or Nike up there. So I think the one thing that I would flame it for is just for it being so demanding. But I feel like it's just college, it's like,
yeah. And I mean, like, I can't really say anything else other than like, yeah, I agree. You know what I mean? Like, cause I'm not a student. I hate school. I'll just say it right now. Like, I don't know if anyone caught on to that, but like, I actually hate school. So you could put me in an English class and I'm going to tell you that it's just a little too much and overwhelming.
yeah.
Like, and that's the thing, is I don't have a good understanding or like really any experience with computer science. So I don't know what that curriculum is like. But from what I'm hearing, especially from you, right? Like I talk to other people, and most of the time they had gone through some sort of education in college, right? Whether it be computer science or not. And the one pattern that I always see is that you're going through courses that you don't need.
Yeah.
Right? Like that boggles my mind that I have to do something that relates nothing to the profession that I'm studying for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, especially in computer science, like, would you say that some of those math classes was even worth taking, even if you were working on the back end side of things? Like, was it worth it, or was it too extensive? Like, could they have backed it up a little bit?
I would say it was definitely extensive.
Okay. I mean, math in itself is extensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can barely do barbell math. So, I mean, like, that's pretty extensive.
I mean, like, discrete math, I can see. I think the problem is just that students don't understand why. Like, why are we taking these classes? Why is it important? And I think, I don't know whether that's like a university thing, or like, I don't know where that goes wrong. But, in terms of like discrete math, like I understood why you would use discrete math. Like it's, it teaches you like the if then type of, conditional statements and things like that you do need in code, any code, front end, back end. It really teaches you the logic and the basics, but like linear, I mean, I understand, like, actually, I'll be honest, I don't understand why it's linear. But that's probably just because I was not, and that's why I decided to take the minor instead of pursue the full major.
Yeah.
I just was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And what I ended up actually taking my senior year is, it's called human computer interaction or design thinking. So that one is more of like a UI UX type of class.
Okay.
So that was why after I graduated, I was like, okay, let's go into front end, because I really enjoyed that one. So like we designed an app. We didn't make the app, coded it or anything. We designed
you
it.
just designed it.
Yeah. And so for me, I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. And that made sense for me. But like all the other back end stuff, I was like, no, what is this?
So is that the only class that you actually had that related to front end?
No, I took I forgot what it's called, but it taught me like the basic HTML, CSS stuff.
Oh, interesting. See, like
Yeah.
my understanding was that none of that was even there.
Oh, it was. But it wasn't part of computer science as a major.
Oh no,
I
yeah,
took
yeah,
it
yeah.
as an elective.
Huh.
It was part of like a design major. So there were a lot of
Uh,
people like majoring in like digital. It wasn't like illustration. I forgot what it was called because they changed all of that over the years. But it was like more of like a design course where they were in charge of, design elements, and the same thing where they design the website, but they don't code it up or anything like that.
hmm.
So I took an elective just because I was interested in it. And I think that was like the intro class, and then the second class was called actual web design. But it was separate from computer science. So
Interesting.
right,
Okay.
very.
Like I I hope, because obviously different schools are going to have different curriculums, right?
Yeah.
Um I like, and I'm not okay with it, but it's nice to see that those courses are still there, right? Because
Hmm.
I honestly felt like JavaScript, HTML, CSS, JavaScript more, I feel like is more in it now, but
Yeah.
like the HTML and the CSS, I feel like you just barely see it when you're going to school. And a lot of the people, not a lot of the people, but I will say like some of the people like yourselves or like me
Hmm.
or anybody in the chat really who want to be doing front end, they don't get that.
Yeah.
Like and I get messages all the time from people on Instagram or on Twitter or whatever, where it's just like, I'm having to balance my CS degree and also teach myself front end because they're not teaching me that. And that's what I want to
Hmm.
be doing.
Yeah.
But they're stuck in the CS degree. So it's like, how do I balance my all my assignments, studying for exams or whatever? Because
Hmm.
I'm assuming CS assignments are not easy.
No.
Like from some of the pictures and some of the things that I've seen, like, oh my god, like that
Yeah.
seems crazy to me. I'm just like, I don't know how you do it. Like Andres on Instagram,
Hmm.
some of the assignments I see him doing, I'm just like, brother, how are you balancing Instagram, YouTube, a part-time job, you have a side business on the a side business on the side. You got a side business and you have school?
Yeah.
And that's just not easy. Like,
Yep.
I don't understand it, but I appreciate the hustle that you have to do, but I feel like it's just too much. So it's nice to see that some of those curriculums are in college, like
Hmm.
electives, let's say. But hopefully, and I really do hope that those like start to become part of the actual curriculum. Um,
Yeah.
were you teaching yourself at all during, or were
Oh,
you kind of just like focused on the degree itself?
no. So funny story. I actually did track in college. I think we've talked about this a little
Yeah,
bit
we talked about
before,
this.
but I
Yeah.
was an athlete in that.
But for those
So,
who don't know, Riki did track.
um, no,
D1
but that's
athlete.
D3, dude.
Oh,
Not
I'm sorry. I'm
D1,
sorry. I'm
but
sorry. I'm sorry.
D3.
I'm
If
sorry.
I was a D1, there's no way I would have been able to dive into CS at
Oh,
all.
I wouldn't know. No, your life would have been track.
Exactly. But with that, just kind of adding on to the point that their students do a lot. And so for my school was a liberal arts college. So it wasn't like that's the thing I hated about college, I think. It's just like, going into it and all of a sudden you have to take like art history or something. Like why is this a requirement? I took this
Yeah.
in high school. What is high school
Yeah.
for? You
Yeah.
know? But whatever. I feel like that's a whole other topic, just college in general. But as far as like CS degrees go, I think the thing about it is it's just so, I don't know. There's just such a variety of ways you can go about a CS degree because there's some schools like I think Cal Poly where they're straight engineering.
Mm.
Like you don't get a CS degree and get your master's in software engineering. You go straight into software engineering. And so I feel like there's just such a wide variety of ways to go about the degree that it's hard to, I don't know, kind of like find your own, like, what works for you type of thing.
Well, you're stuck.
Because
You're stuck to the path that they give you.
yeah, but also to your point, like I told you, the what's it called? Like the design
Yeah. Yeah.
major was
Yeah.
separate. And so I think the thing about college is that See, okay, now I'm gonna conflict. Like, I'm gonna contradict what I'm like I was gonna say earlier, because I was gonna say that I think the thing that college brings is awareness to interdisciplinary, I don't know, values.
Uh-huh.
That's, I think, what I learned from that like design class, because the design class wasn't just CS kids. It was like CS majors. We had like psychology majors. I think we had maybe one business major, but it was from a wide variety of majors. But that's so important in a design. If you
Yeah.
think about it, like wherever you go and whatever company you work for, you have to think about all these different aspects. It can't just be, from a CS route, it's like, oh, does it work? But from a business route, is it sellable? And
Mm.
then from a psychology route, it's like, is it appealing to the eye? You know what I mean? So there's like these
Hmm.
different design aspects that kind of come together. And I feel like I was going to say that that's like what college brings. But then at the same time, I feel like it doesn't bring that,
Yeah.
because for like CS, people are so focused on like, oh, you grind, you grind, you grind because it's so hard.
Hmm.
And then at the end of it, it's like you didn't have any time to explore all these other interdisciplinary, I don't know, fields and things like that in order to make you like a well-rounded employee, individual, whatever you want to call it, engineer,
Yeah.
developer, or
Hmm.
whatever. So I think, there's like, like the two sides to a coin type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I agree and I disagree, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the hard thing, right? Because I don't have input on it. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm completely uneducated on, the education system in terms of like the CS side. I have no idea what goes into it, and that's why I want to bring these conversations up, because I literally have zero clue. The only
Yeah.
thing I go off of is literally my disdain for school. And I'm just like, look, I don't think you should go. I hate school, but at the same time, I understand, and I wanted to make a video on this, but I should probably do it here too. Is
Mhm.
I should probably put this at the beginning of the recording, but I'm not saying don't go. I'm not saying you should drop out. I'm not saying you should um be self-taught.
Mhm.
Do what makes you happy and do what you think is right. It just because I don't believe in the school system, and just because I don't like school and that I'm not a student and I don't think I can be a student, and it's not that I don't think I can be, I'm really not. Um doesn't mean that you aren't, and
Yeah,
doesn't mean that you shouldn't, right? Like
definitely.
Riki went because she felt that was the reason she needed to do it,
Mhm.
right? But then ultimately you ended up as a self-taught right
Yeah,
after, right? Like
but at
after
the same
graduation.
time, um so here's like the debate, right? For
uh,
me, I like school. Dude, I'm
yeah,
getting my
there's people like you that say that, and I
I'm
don't
like, dude,
understand it.
I'm applying to grad school. I'm getting my doctorate
I
in
feel like there's
physical
like just some like
therapy.
holy water that I gotta like signed up to a cult. I'm just like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like,
So that's the other side of it, right? Is that I like school, but I think for me it's just that I like structure. That's how I am as a
and
person.
100%, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I always say. Is like some people need that structure. Some
Mhm.
people need that like stance of, okay, there's a professor, there's my class. I'm gonna
Yep.
listen to what he or she has to say, and I'm gonna do the work. That's it,
Mhm.
right? Like people need that, and people love that. I get
Yeah.
it. I get it. Same thing comes with a boot camp,
Yeah.
right? Like
Exactly.
if you needed the structure, I always say, look at a boot camp.
Mhm.
One, you're probably potentially saving more money than you would if you went to do, university.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I
like, I
think
get it. I get it.
yeah. I think my advice for people kind of like thinking about, and if there's any listeners, I feel like you have a few that are not even in college yet.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
few younger, and then the younger audiences.
Hmm.
Um,
I
I
get
think my
kids who are like
advice,
12 that are like asking me questions. I'm like, dude, what? You're 12. Don't worry about it
yeah,
right now.
I know, right? I was like, what was I doing when I was
I know. I was
12?
like, 12 years old. I don't even remember.
But my advice would just to, I mean, it depends for everybody, but if I personally, for me, if I were to do it over again, and this is coming from somebody who, had gone through both essentially, right? Like I had done the degree first and then self taught. My advice would be to go to junior college.
Dude,
Like,
JC, baby. Dude, I couldn't even make it out of JC. That's all I'm gonna say.
but that's exactly right. So then now you're here and you realize, like, hey, and you potentially save yourself like thousands and thousands of dollars that I
Oh,
now have in student debt
oh, oh,
because
100%.
you went the JC route and you realize it. But also just in general, like, go to JC, knock out those GEs. Like, every single school, unless it's like I don't even know how Cal Poly is structured. I always use it as an example because I've heard from multiple people that you go in and you have to declare a major.
Oh, really? You can't go in undeclared?
No, and it's dangerous, or I think you have to declare within your first semester or something like that, which
Oh,
as an
wow.
18-year-old, how do you expect
That's a big
18-year-olds?
decision.
Exactly. And so I don't know what the stats are for people in Cal Poly and who drops out or who actually makes it out, but there are those people that they go into college and know exactly what they're going to do. And like, props to you. But me,
But the statistic on that is that like most people who go in with that always change majors or minors, whatever.
exactly. That was
Yeah.
me. I switched majors 5 times.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? But yeah, I would say go to GE route. Like, take those requirements that like I said, art history, or like
Yeah.
philosophy, whatever. I think those classes are still important. I think in general, I can see why they would play into like your curriculum and your degree and stuff because, like I said, interdisciplinary, trying to be well-rounded, that kind of thing. I understand and I get it. Not to say that you can't get those experiences somewhere else, but like I said, I understand and I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, take those requirements, knock them out of the way. Like, for JC, save yourself some money, and then once you sit down and you realize, like, hey, I actually really want to be a developer. I actually want to be, a CS. Like, I want to go into computer science, or I want to go into cybersecurity. There's like data science now,
Mhm.
then go ahead and do that. And you're only in school for another 2 years.
Yeah. And then so let me clarify this and then I'll go into a little bit of like small bit of story time for me because I don't think I've
Okay,
touched on this a little bit.
sure.
But so for the international side of people that are watching or listening, JC, JUCO, community college, whatever you want to call it. There's different terms here that we call it in the US. It's pretty much like, I don't know how else to really describe it, but it's like, it's a step underneath university where you only go for like what, 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you kind of like, you can decide on what kind of major you want to go to. And then from there, after your 2 years, you would then transfer to a 4 year and finish your degree off there and get your bachelor's or pursue a master's or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The caveats, not the caveats, but the nice nuances that I found for me for JUCO was I didn't have to take my SATs. I don't know what that equivalent is in any other school system, like abroad, but for the SATs, like I'm pretty sure you had to take it in order to get into universities.
Mm-hmm.
If you went out of high school and you didn't want to take it, like me, I completely refused to take it. You can just go the JUCO route and sign up, and then you don't have to take it.
Yeah.
So I was like all about that. Everybody was studying for SATs, and I was like dooskies. Like,
Yeah, dude. I studied abroad in England, and that blew my mind. Their bachelor's is 3 years.
what?
And like,
But they also are, their school system is weird though. Like in my opinion, like they have like it's like A levels or something, and
yeah.
like you get certifications
Yeah.
instead of degrees, which that part I actually think is a lot better because you actually get certified for the things that you want.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what what else that entails. Like,
Yeah,
I
there's
don't know.
a lot that got kind of like, it's very different. Like, I went my last year, my last semester of senior year, went to England, just said screw it,
I
and I
mean,
actually came back early to walk and graduate. But it was so funny because I was like an extra year in school, and so everybody was like, all the seniors that I was in school with, they're technically juniors. It was just like, why are you in school for an extra year and all this other stuff? And yeah, we could talk about that another time because their entire system is, like you said, very different.
yeah, very
Um,
different. Maybe I should get someone from the UK to come in and just like explain that because that shit is like rocket science. I'm just like, yo, what are we talking about right now?
yeah.
But going back to that whole JUCO thing. So speaking of majors and declaring initially and then changing later on eventually, I actually went in to community college. Do you know Mission College?
Yeah.
West Valley. So that's where I
Mhm.
went. They're both sister schools, so they run off the same system,
Mhm.
different campuses. But I went into West Valley / Mission with a initial uh nutritionist / dietitian major. So
Okay.
that was the route that I wanted to go.
Interesting.
I had no intentions of I at the time I was not pursuing code at all. I didn't
Yeah.
know about computer science. I didn't look into that degree route. I was all about nutrition, like sports science, like just human performance in general. So that's what I want to go into. And I think the nice thing about the whole JUCO route was as I was going through it and failing almost every class, except for English and psychology, um, I I appreciated that I wasn't stuck to, like a degree, right?
Mhm.
Like even though I declared it, I wasn't really subject to anything. Like I could just drop whenever. Um so that was kind of the thing was like as I was going through and as I was trying to figure myself out, I I really figured out that school was not it.
Yeah.
Like I was not about that. Um and that's like the cool thing about JUCO was
Mhm.
you save money. I barely paid anything, right?
Yeah.
Like comparatively to a university, I barely paid anything. The more expensive part was the books,
Yeah.
right? And I think putting yourself in an environment where this is what I'm trying to say is figuring out what it is you actually want to be doing with your life.
Mhm.
And I hate that people, like you said, have to go into a place like Cal Poly, and it's a great university, right? Like renowned place, very well known. But the fact that you have to go in, quote unquote, knowing what it is you want to be doing for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
At what, 18?
Exactly.
You're 18 years old.
Yeah.
And in this space, in the coding space, right? You see people at 50, 60,
Mhm.
40, 35, 28, all making a switch over to coding.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the other thing I want to talk to or touch on as well, but not right now. Like, just very lightly, is that you can always switch to this whenever you want.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of being able to self-teach yourself in this industry, right?
And I
Like,
think
go ahead.
to your point, I think you could do that with anything. Just like
Uh,
on the other side though, you don't think so? Okay, see, here's where the debate is happening. Here we go.
Self-teaching yourself in anything?
No, 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 not self-teaching. Just it's making the switch.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I thought we were
Yeah.
talking about self-teaching. I'm like, you go self-teach yourself
No.
how to be a doctor, okay?
No, 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 no. There's a reason
Doing
why
some
those have
incisions
certifications.
on grapes and shit in your house.
No. Yeah, no, there's a reason why there's board exams and stuff put in place
Yeah,
for that.
yeah,
But in terms
yeah.
of just like switching,
Mhm.
yeah. And I interrupted you, so go ahead and
No, I don't. I
finish
lost
your
my train of
point.
thought.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good. We're good.
But I will say, because there might be listeners who are already in college, and I don't want them to feel like, oh crap, well, I'm already in it. Do I drop out? Like, no, 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 no. If it's for you, it's for you. And that's okay. And I think my
Yep.
biggest advice, because like, right, like I said, I switched majors 5 times. And like the counseling department probably hated me because I put in almost every single semester, I put in a declaration, like a new change of my major type of declaration. I went and I was going to make a video about this.
There we go.
But I went in as a bio major because I was like, oh, I want to be a pediatrician and like all these other things, wanted to work with kids. Realized I didn't want to do that.
Mhm.
And so I switched into exercise science or kinesiology, which ended up being my actual degree. But during that, I also switched into business. And then I realized I was like, I don't really want to go to school for business because I could just
Learn it.
teach myself all this stuff. Yeah. And then I switched into design and no, it wasn't design, it was film. I believe it was film.
Oh hell yeah! I was in
Yeah,
film
so
for high school. That was so dope.
yeah, me too. So I was like, hey, I really like this. I really enjoy it. I was like at the peak of me like just loving creating videos and things like that. So I switched into film, trying to find, I don't know, I guess my passion in it again. And then I switched out into computer science because I think I was just trying to chase that, like, I don't know what it was, but I think I was just really scared to switch into computer science. So I finally bit the bullet and did it. And also took a bit of a background. Like in high school, I took like a Java course and completely fell in love. That was my very first language that I ever learned was Java. I guess minus HTML, CSS from MySpace. But
I never did that. I missed that phase.
Oh my gosh, you would have loved it.
I missed
God,
that
you would have
phase.
loved it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I took Java in high school, fell in love, went to college, switched into computer science, and then I was in it for a little bit, and then I was gonna do computer science kines minor because I had already done kines like pretty much halfway through. And then I took a human development, no, not human. It's a motor control class, like a motor learning control class.
Like robotics?
Fell in love with that, huh?
Like, is that robotics?
No, for kines.
Oh, understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
So I fell in, like, I just realized I completely really love that. And I was talking to my counselor and he was like, well, you're going to be in school for 6 years if you decide, if you continue doing the minor, or I'm sorry, the CS major or a double major. And I was like, dude, no, I'm not trying to be here for 6 years.
Yeah.
And I completed in 4.5, but that extra half was because I took it abroad. And that was just, I have no regrets of studying abroad. But anyways, so I switched out of computer science, got that as a minor, and now here we are. I have a kines degree. But to my point, long way of saying, if you are in college and you are kind of scrambling and thinking of, you're listening to Justin and you think he's telling you to drop out, don't do that. I would say the first 2 years, focus on getting, if you really don't know what you want to do or you don't know if code is for you, take it slow. 4 years goes by fast, especially in college, but it's also a long time. And you develop from 18 to 21, or 20, 22, 23, however long you finish school, you develop a lot and you learn a lot more about yourself. And so I would say finish your GEs, like all the classes you don't want to take, save that. Don't save it for last. A lot of people save it for last. They're like, oh, I want my senior year to be the easiest year. But I'm like, no, make your first 2 years the easier years because you really don't know what you want yet. Or if you don't, you don't. So I would say do that and then take a few classes here and there, take enough to kind of be on track with your major. And then you have some room to switch out if you want to switch out. And I would say be 100% honest with yourself. I think that's
exactly
where
what I was going to touch on.
Yeah, I think that's where people go wrong is they like go into it like I said, I wanted to go get my MD and I realized like it's just the money is appealing. Working with kids is appealing, but at the end of the day, like I don't want to do this. You know, I was like, I don't want to I don't want to go into school for another 8 years, do my residencies and all that stuff. And so, and similar to that point, I didn't want to be I didn't want to be a software engineer, at least not right now or at the time. I didn't like the back end stuff. It was hard. I was like, I don't like this. Like even my counselor, he even sat down with me and was like, I know you have the brain power to do this, but do you want to?
Yeah, that's the big thing, right?
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Are you doing this because of the money? Are you doing this because it looks good and it pays well? Or are you actually doing this because you want it? Right? Like that's a big question. And that's the other thing I want to talk about. There's two things actually. One is like Riki touched on this too. No matter what we say, right? There's so many of us in the community where we have differing opinions. I know Danny Thompson, who's in here, has his opinion on this. I have mine. Christian has his. You have yours. Everyone has theirs, right? And you have so many differing opinions that you can listen to. There are some similarities in our opinions, but ultimately they're ours, right? You can use them as guidelines. You can use it as some advice, but don't take it as the ultimate answer. And that's what I hate when people do is that, my opinion is now their answer and I disagree with that.
Yeah.
Like my opinion is my opinion. You need to be your own person and kind of understand yourself because me, you, Danny, Chris, whoever else in the community doesn't know you personally. Right? They don't know how you think. They don't know your tendencies. They don't know what you like or dislike. Okay? So if you feel that you need to drop out or you feel like you need to switch your major because computer science isn't for you, You're the only one that can really answer that question.
Yep.
Me, Riki, Danny, Chris, doesn't matter, whoever, right? Anyone on Twitter, anyone on Instagram, we're going to say all these things. I will always preach my disdain for school. But that doesn't mean that because I do, that means you now hate school.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you need to make your decisions on your own. Use these all as, like, again, like I said, guidelines. You know, like, kind of take in that perspective, right? Use different perspectives to kind of guide you in that route. But at the end of the day, if you are unhappy in a computer science degree, make a decision. Right? Don't make that decision because, oh, Justin doesn't like school. Oh, I'm out. I'm gone.
Yeah.
Today.
Absolutely.
Who do I go see? I don't need to be here anymore. Like, I'm done with this. I'm gonna go self-taught because Justin's doing it. Right?
Yeah.
Justin, what laptop you got? Where do you live?
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like, there are those people though. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
They adopt like other people's lives and they're not living their own.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God, yeah.
Shit, someone clip that. Someone clip it. Someone clip it. But like, again, be your own person. That's something you got to learn. Is like being your own person. So like, that's one thing. Damn, I just went on like a whole ass like,
here we go. He's
like
talking.
gospel kind of thing, and I kind of just forgot my second point. Yo, where's my choir at? Like, I need to get a soundboard with a choir.
You need to edit it
in. Dropping that. But what was like? There was another thing I really, really wanted to touch on too. Was, damn, what were we talking about?
Being your own person.
And before that, you were going on something, and it kind of just like, I should have wrote it down.
Switching majors. If you don't think about it, it'll come to you. Like, trust me. We're gonna start talking about something else.
It'll come to me. It'll come to me at the worst time though. Like, we're about to cut the podcast. And I'm like, oh wait, don't everyone don't leave. But yeah, like that's just like kind of the one main thing is being your own person. I think that's one big takeaway when it comes to this conversation / debate / argument / whatever it is, right? This is going to be and continue to be for a very long time. The conversation that runs around in this community is, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right? Like, do I go computer science? Do I go self-taught? Do I go this or that? And it's hard because like some people do want to pursue a degree, but it's so expensive. Like, it's not something that we could say, you know, you got to test it out. You got to play around with it. But like, some people just don't have the buying power for that.
Well, that's the thing too, that I feel like is a very important question to ask yourself is, what are you afraid of?
Yeah.
Or what is the reason you're not doing something? My dog's barking. I don't know if you guys can hear that.
No, you're good. That
I was like, oh God.
It makes it more real. Just keep going.
I was like, freaking mailman's here. But anyway, I think that's the question you got to ask yourself, because for me, and this is where I feel like my story is very unique, because, you know, like, I feel like the stuff that I went through is very transferable to, like, I don't know, I guess like CS. So like, just the fact that I switched out of kines and then switched back, that might happen to you as a CS major or whatever you're in, you know, engineering. And that's okay. Like, for me, the thing that really helped me kind of decide if I want to pursue physical therapy or pursue software engineering is changing my mentality from if this, not that, to if this, then that. And so, you know, to my point, I might. You got the choir. We need the choir in the back.
Oh my God, that's what we should call it. Keep going.
But to my point, like, you know, you're gonna make me lose my train of thought. But no, you're all good. But yeah, I think just switching that mentality, and it made me realize that just because I'm in something right now, it doesn't mean I'm, you know, rejecting this other thing that I really, really, really want. It just means that there's maybe another time and place for it. And so who knows? My mentality going into physical therapy school is that I do really believe that there is something in the middle of sports science or whatever physical therapy realm I'm going to get into, and tech, that for some reason I was brought into this universe with the brain power to like both. And I feel like there's really something in the industry for me. And so who knows, maybe I go into physical therapy and, I run my own clinic for a few years, and then I realized, hey, there's this type of technology that we really, really need. And then I go into software engineering, and then I bring it into the industry. So, like, the thing is, I don't want people to limit themselves. That is the overall, I think, message with that. It's just, don't limit yourself. Just because you're doing something now doesn't mean you're going to be stuck. My mom is 49 and she just did a career switch after 10 years. Yeah.
No, and I agree. And to add on to that, it's being open-minded about that. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like, again, it's exactly what you touched on, is people feel like there's only one route, and there isn't. Like, you're preaching on them, right? Like part of the gospel today, man. Jesus Christ, is today's Sunday? Like, can someone, like, is today's, Jesus, the Lord is shining down on us.
I think today's Wednesday. I was like, Wednesday's
I
the
know,
new
we're
Sunday.
in the middle of it. I'm like, God damn, okay. But, like, yeah, why limit yourself? Why? You can make the same argument, like, good analogy, right? Why limit yourself to one technology when you're learning code? Why limit yourself to, these things when you can learn so many other things? And that's the thing, is don't cap yourself on the opportunities or the experiences that you can have. It's you trying things out. It's you playing around with things, experimenting. And that's part of figuring yourself out.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like, you're never going to know unless you do it. Right?
Yeah.
Like, none of us would have never ever known that this whole YouTube thing could be a thing if we hadn't done it. And I know we've talked about this before.
Oh, yeah.
Off stream, especially with Chris, we had friends that told us we couldn't do it.
Oh, I have people tell me that all the time. And I was on YouTube before anybody was on YouTube.
All the time. I'm sure Danny got the same thing. I know, I see him in the chat, right?
Yeah.
All of us who are doing our things right now, and I'm not saying, anyone else in the chat isn't doing their thing. You're all doing your thing. But should you, or would you have listened to those outside opinions telling you, even in family, dude? That's like the crazy thing, is like when family tells you, right?
We're going into that?
Oh, hold on. No, back up. Those are murky waters. But that's like, it's for real though.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
I absolutely
agree. And it touches on the point of being your own person.
Yeah.
Too, is why listen to those outside opinions when it's something you want to do? Exactly. Why are you doing it to conform to outside opinions or your family's thought of what you should be doing?
And I think all in all, this is like an identity thing, right?
Oh, so 100%.
So the thing that helped me learn kind of like how to navigate through life and stuff like that. And I'm like, we're both young. I think we're both 24. Like, sometimes I sit down and I'm like,
24 in February.
You're 23?
We've talked about this.
Oh, yes. God, I keep forgetting.
But okay, here's the thing that's going to piss me off now. You're 24, I'm 23, and then all of a sudden I'm like a baby now.
Oh, no.
Yeah. No. I hate when that happens. Chad, I know what you know what I'm talking about. I'm she like, been saying you too young, but she's like 3 months ahead. Like, nah.
If we bring Chris into this, then we'll hear it.
Oh, Chris is gonna be like, oh, back in my day. But 10 years older. Come on, get out of here.
Nah, so I think the thing is, and I bring the age thing just because a lot of people, and I just want to, put some respect in the people that have been in the industry for years and years and years. And it's like, not to cancel the stuff that they have done, like what they have gone through, but just based off of like what I've gone through. And I feel like you can really attest to this too a little bit. I think for me, I got stuck on the identity of being someone or being something versus doing the thing. So for like, as an athlete, I got stuck on being a pole vaulter or being a track and field athlete instead of I'm Riki and I do track. Yes. You know what I mean?
Yes,
and so in the same way, like, I feel like that's the thing about college, and that's the thing about like majors and careers, is that we need the choir.
Where my shoes at? Where my shoes? That's like the voice. I'm throwing my shoe.
But yeah, so like, I feel like a lot of people get stuck on like, I am a CS major, I am an engineer, I am X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, no. You are your own person. Yeah. And you're doing this thing right now in the season of your lifetime. But what I will preach and what I will die on this hill, the thing that you should be is a lifelong learner. Like
Mm. You should be a
100%.
student.
Yeah, I mean, you're not like a traditional student in a sense where
Yeah.
you're in school and stuff, but you learn from your mentors. You learn from,
Mhm.
Chris and Kyle and whoever else you're learning from. And same here with me, right? Like in this conversation, you and I are learning a little bit more about our experiences, and this is why you started this podcast and stuff like that. But I kind of wanted to just like put that out there because I know there's people out there who are, I don't know, a little bit older, and times have changed, and I just want you guys to know that like I said, overall message, do not limit yourself.
Yeah.
Like it is
Yeah.
okay if you're going to switch your career, and I know it's hard and there's tough decisions to be made, especially if you have a family, and I get it. It's easier said than done, but at the end of the day, you can always do it.
Yeah. And like it's crazy to think about because it's like I knew that this was a problem
Yeah.
back when I first not when I first started. I would say maybe like a year or two into starting CrossFit. And this will loop back into what we're talking about, right?
Mhm.
CrossFit is its own thing. And as soon as I say CrossFit, right, for those of the people in the chat who do know, or anyone listening who knows, you immediately have an image of what an athlete looks like doing CrossFit.
Mhm.
That's the same thing that goes around with software engineering or coders. You instantly have an idea of what that person looks like and is doing and what their life already looks like. And the
Mhm.
problem, not specifically in the CrossFit scene, but that's what I've come to know because I know people, and it kind of affected me in that way early on, and I figured it out, so I nipped it in the bud. But it's like you now identify with CrossFit if you
Yeah.
let it consume you, right? I am not, like you said, I am not Justin anymore. I am a
Mhm.
CrossFit athlete.
Yeah.
And I let that like consume me because then I started conforming to a CrossFit athlete's lifestyle. I felt like I had to be doing these movements and these kinds of workouts, working out twice a day, having double sessions, eating these certain foods when it's not me. I can't be doing double days because like my body will not allow that. But
Mhm.
I'm pushing myself because I feel like I have to in order to maintain this image of what a CrossFit athlete looks like.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with coding. You feel like you have to be coding every day, 8 hours a day, nonstop, no breaks, only for the bathroom, barely eating, coffee all the time, right? Like you have a predisposed image of what a software engineer
Yeah,
or
it's like an aesthetic.
100%. But like you conform, when you conform to that image, that's when it
Mhm.
becomes an issue because you're not your own unique person no more. Like you're conforming to this stereotypical person or the stigma of what a coder is. And it's
Mhm.
like that's not how that works, buddy. Like like figure out what it is you want to be doing.
Yeah.
Figure out what it is you want to be building. Figure out what it is you want to be learning.
Mhm.
How you want
Exactly.
to learn it, what route you want to take to do it, what kind of people you want to surround yourself with, and be you as a coder, not the coder being you,
Yeah, definitely.
right?
And I think like people need to remember that there is space for you.
Or
Like
100%.
for me, that's the thing I bring to the table in terms of like applications for grad school and like physical therapy school. Most people statistically just when you see their application, you think high GPA, it's like 3.8, 3.9. They minored in like psychology or business or something that would quote unquote benefit the field. And I put out a poll like a few maybe months ago asking people like, have you ever met somebody that pursued kinesiology and computer science? In some way, shape, or form, like any kind of computer science. It's basic from the basic code to you're a software engineer type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's like 100% people, and like 100% of the people, and there were maybe like 42, 45 people that commented on that or answered that poll. All of them said no, and I'm like, yo, I am one in like 50. So that was like hard for me to accept for a while because I had
Because you're
trouble
not,
finding my people.
yeah.
And
But
it's just the
that's the other
community
thing.
aspect.
Yeah, that's the other
Mhm.
thing. It's like you can feel weird in that space because you're not the norm.
Yeah, but that's something to embrace.
No,
And
100%. That's what I was gonna
yeah.
say. You're your own unique person now. Like,
Exactly.
why? Because more often than not, people would say if they were combining kinesiology with computer science, they'd be like, these don't mesh well. Like,
Yeah.
it's one or the other. I gotta pick one or the other. But it's like, no,
Mhm.
if you like both, do what you did and do it. Because
Exactly.
you felt like that was what you needed to do and what was gonna make you happy. So
Mhm.
throw out that like conventional thinking of it's one way or the highway,
Yep.
right? Like it's not that. It's, if I want to combine computer science and um physical therapy or, human performance or whatever it is, there is room for that.
Yeah.
Like you can't cap that. Like there would be no creativity if someone capped on that.
Oh, there would be no Steve Jobs. There would be
None of that.
no
Like
Elon
you can't
Musk.
be. I think the main thing that like we could touch on there as well is like you can't be afraid of going against the grain.
Oh yeah,
You know
it's
what I
gonna be
mean?
tough
Yeah.
for
It,
sure.
it's
But
gonna be so tough
yeah,
for you if you are so afraid of going against the grain, getting out of your comfort zone. And I say this all the time, and I said this in the video that came out today was you need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
oh yeah, 100%.
Like if you're
Yeah.
not, then you're gonna stick to this image of, okay, go a computer science degree. Let me do this for 4 years. Let me get an internship. Let me get a
Hmm.
job. I'm gonna work at that job. I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but
Yeah.
it's gonna pay really well, and I'm just gonna sit on a computer all day and code. And I don't know what I'm building, but I know how to do it. They just tell me to do it, and I do it, and
Exactly.
you know what I mean. Like it's like no,
And it's
go
the same
do what
thing
you
for
want.
like physical therapy, right? Like that's the
Yeah,
thing, that's the beauty of the Instagram community, at least that I have found in terms of physical therapy, is that a lot of the people over there aren't just about PT. They, that's what they do and that's what they preach. And, you know, 9 times out of 10, that's what they're going to talk about because that's their career and that's fine. But there's also the other part that, they like to do. Like they like to game, they like to, I don't know, DIY, whatever it may be, all these other
yeah,
hobbies. And, and that's okay. And that's important because at the end of the day, you're going to do what you want to do. And I feel like a lot of us in the, I don't know, in the community, and at least our community, our main goal is really to help people and to serve people. But with that, you just have to remember that it is very important to find and do what feeds your soul.
yeah.
Because if you're pouring, you can't pour from an empty cup, and if you're pouring too much into somebody else's and yours is empty, you're gonna, all that fulfillment you had felt in the beginning of doing your thing, it's gonna drain out real quick.
Oh,
So
100%. And that's
where's
like
the fire?
and I saw someone
Where's
say in
it?
the chat, but it's burnout.
Oh, 100%. That
It's
was literally my senior project.
yeah, it's burnout, it's imposter syndrome, it's
Yeah,
all the negative connotations that come with being on this journey, but it is the most educational part of it.
yeah,
Is like you can't be afraid to go through that because if you're not going through then like what are you doing?
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
God.
And the
So,
thing is too, if you do
yeah.
your thing, your people will come. So
Mm,
I'm very small on like Instagram and stuff, and even YouTube. I'm still, starting out and things like that. But the more I put myself out there, and the more I embrace the fact that I am both a coder and, I don't know, kinesiologist. The more like people gravitated towards it, and it was either one or the other. Like I think I'd asked you before, if you weren't doing code, what would you have done? And you said like sports science. Funny enough, I had asked similar people, if you weren't doing like exercise science, kinesiology, sports science, what would you do? And they said code or something tech related.
mhm.
So I'm just like, you see how this is connected. And then I had some like two people come into my DMs and just say like, hey, I'm a kinesiology major and I'm minoring in computer science and I found your page, all this other stuff. And I'm just like, that is so dope. Like two people out of the 1,500 or however many people that are following me or that I've connected with. And I just think that's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's so affirming that there are people out there. And that's why it's so important for you to kind of just like do your own thing, share your story.
And
And yeah.
that to touch on that is like I think that's the one thing that I love about this community that we're in and the community that we're creating on the Discord as well is that there are people that are in the same boat as us. We've had previous interests and not to say that we've thrown them out the gate, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we're not letting go of that, but ultimately at the end of the day we've ended up in the same spot where code
Yeah.
is now bringing us together or this common interest of learning a skill
Hmm.
whether it be code or not,
Yeah.
is what kind of connects all of us. And to make that journey and that process transparent is, I think, what the goal is, right? Like, we're all on our own special journeys. And like for me, same thing for you, right? Like if it wasn't PT or if it wasn't, you know, any of those physical sciences, it's code for you, right? And it's
Oh
the
yeah.
same thing for me. If it wasn't code, it'd be that, or like I came from IT, still in tech, but it's completely different,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I'm working on very, very opposite things when it comes to IT to now software development or web
Yeah.
development, right? And I know that a lot of people who follow me or who watch me, at least, resonate with that, because there's so many people in the IT industry that I can tell you felt the same way that I felt a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
where it was just like, oh, dude, this is crazy. I'm doing what now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people in the chat or whoever's listening to the podcast can maybe like attest and agree to this. It's, dude, IT work sucks. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it can be fulfilling for maybe the first couple months you start your job, but then when you start getting the people that are just the worst, the worst, man, like
Yeah.
they get to you. And like for me, it was the respect factor. Like I was just that guy in the corner of the office who fixed your stuff.
Oh
And that
yeah.
was it. There was no thank you. There was
Mm-hmm.
no good job. There was none of that. And it was just like, I don't think this is fulfilling.
Yeah.
Like, I need to go do something else. And I think that's why we all come into one singular position and spot and in the community where it's like, we need something fulfilling and we need something where we can kind of flex that creative side, flex
Mm-hmm.
that problem solving, flex whatever it is, and like all come together and help each other with that. And you know, everyone's journey at the end of the day resonates, and it's something to see. It's something cool to watch, and like to
Mm-hmm.
see, you know, it's not just IT, right? It's IT, PT, business, lawyer, doctor, whatever it is, to see all these people's different stories to now come back into the middle and all reach for one common thing
Yeah.
is kind of cool,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that's the thing for me, is like seeing that and being able to
It's all about community.
community, spread the knowledge, spread values, spread and just like help people. There's so many people that follow us. It's like that are so confused as to what they should be doing or how they should be doing something. And I like, my message and my goal was like, it's changed since I've started,
Yeah.
but it's like now on my Twitter bio I changed it, right? Like it's making this whole journey transparent, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is not a traditional route. Like when you
Yeah.
go for your front end role or you go and apply for a job, you are not a conventional candidate,
Oh yeah.
right? Like,
100%.
and I'm speaking in the self-taught route. If you went computer science degree, that's completely different. You're conventional, and you know you should be ashamed to. No, I'm just kidding.
Here we go. Here he is.
Yeah. Look, I couldn't let us go like 20-ish minutes without talking shit, so I kind of had to bring it back. But like, right? It's
I
it's unconventional, and like it's hard to navigate if you don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it can be hard to navigate. It can be very, very nerve-wracking. You can get in your head about it.
For a CS degree or for
For
self-taught?
unconventional.
I
For
was gonna
self-taught.
say, because for conventional, I think it's the same thing. Like
I feel like
you get
I feel like you have a way more, how do I say this? You are essentially guided through that process a lot easier
mm,
because of the connections you're given outright and just like upfront.
yeah, but I think as soon as you get into it, you quickly realize that without somebody there holding your hand and telling you what to do, you ultimately don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like there's definitely people that have gone through the degree and then they go into a job 3 years later, they're like, holy cow, nobody taught me how to be happy in this job.
Yeah.
You know, it's like somebody told me how to sit down and write code or do the technical thing, but nobody told me, you know, outside of school. And I think that's ultimately like, that's the con of school, right? Is that you get stuck in this identity, again, identity thing, that you're a
Mm-hmm.
student. And then you get out and then you're like, oh shoot, like now I gotta pay rent and pay student loans and all these other things that I gotta do now as an adult, plus try to navigate through figuring out who the heck I am without school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like there's people that go get their master's and their PhD up until they don't leave school because,
Yeah.
and I mean, if that's for you, that's what you want to do. Like, by all means, go do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But there's people that get stuck in it because that's what's comfortable.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know what our school system's going to look like 10 years from, even a year from now, with all this COVID-19 stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and everything being distance learning. But I think that's what ends up happening. The conventional route is that you get stuck in this. I think it just also might be with the times, but you get stuck with the traditional, resume builder, portfolio builder type of way, and then you get out there, and then all of a sudden these companies want more, and you're like, what more do I do? This is all that school taught me.
Yeah.
I think I learned that from going through my physical therapy stuff, because I'm unconventional. So in that realm, I'm very unconventional. I guess in both, I'm kind of unconventional. But in that realm, very unconventional. A lot of people, the traditional route, they go into undergrad with, declare the kinesiology, whatever, health science, whatever it may be, finish the prereqs, done in 4 years, get into school. But for me, I'm like, I'm taking a gap year. Plus, I'm doing the coding stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have the best GPA. My GPA, I'm going to be very transparent, it's like 3.2. And a lot of candidates, especially when you okay, but like when you given the pool, especially I want to go to UCSF, and UCSF is a very competitive school.
Mm-hmm.
And there's schools out there like Sac State and all these other schools that, like, they don't even look at the rest of your application if it doesn't say 3.7 or up GPA. And that's
Mm-hmm.
like, and it's like, how can I bring what other things I have to the table if you're not even going to hear me out?
Yeah.
But I think, like, that's what that path taught me, is that you're going into these industries, like, you have, and just circling back, like, everything is going to the same thing of just being yourself, because you're
Yeah.
going into these industries as your person
Mm-hmm.
doing the thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like ultimately that's what everybody needs to, like, if you're not on that train yet, you got to hop on it, because there's a million people, like, I always say this, right? There's a million day in the life videos on YouTube. But the thing
Oh,
that
take it easy. I'm part of that. I'm part of that
No, but okay,
category.
hear me out. Hear me out. There's a million day in the life videos on YouTube, but there's only one you. And
Mm.
ultimately, that's what brings people, like, however many people are in this. There's 63 people watching our stream right now, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's ultimately what it is. It's the same thing when you go into trying to look for a job. You got to figure out what makes you you, because it's not your degree, it's not your experience, it's not X, Y, and Z that's on a piece of paper that's going to get you that job. It's going to get you your dream job. It's who you are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
If you're personable, if you're a people person, if you're not a people person and you just want to sit and code and not talk to people for 8 hours, there's space for that. There, you can do that. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to learn how to embrace it and just, be okay with that. So,
Yeah.
where's the choir?
I'm telling you, I need that soundboard. I need that soundboard because that, like, dude, I have to go back through all of this and just clip like some of this
I
stuff
know.
because it's just like some of it is just like really good.
I
But
will give a quick shout out to Taryn, though.
yeah,
Uh,
I see him. I see him desperately asking for attention. No, I'm just kidding. I see him. If for those that don't know, and I'm gonna give Taryn a quick shout out. Taryn is actually a mutual friend of both of ours. I went to middle school with that fool, and Riki went to high school with him.
yeah.
And we come to find out when after me and Riki had met and talked for a little bit. I don't even
Yeah.
remember what happened. But was it you that brought up that Taryn knew us or knew me?
I think I asked him if he knew you it was like a CrossFit thing. I thought you guys knew each other because of CrossFit. Um,
Mm,
and then it wasn't. I think you guys know each other because of school. And that's when he
yeah,
was like, hey,
yeah,
you know, I went to middle. I was like, he was like, how do you know him? I'm like, how do you know
yeah,
him? And then I went to
yeah.
you, and it's the same thing. And so it's pretty funny.
Same
But
story. Yeah.
yeah,
So
funny how the
that,
world works.
yeah, for real. It's crazy. It's crazy. And to even think that Taryn is now a software engineer too.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
it.
that guy. Okay, I give major props because Taryn was in my, oh my God, every single year, freshman year of high school. He was just sitting in my Spanish class every single year. He was in my Spanish class, and I think junior year, he was also in my coding class. And he was one of the very. I was 2 out of 30 people, 2 girls out of 30 guys. Or 2 girls out of 30 guys, but there's 2 of us girls and there are 30 guys in that class for Java. And he and a few other people were very good about making sure I wasn't like outcasted or anything.
Mhm.
And it wasn't even like that they had to like go out of their way to make me feel outcasted. They were just being good people. But there, I've had that experience of people like shunning me or like thinking differently of me because, one, I'm an athlete, two, I'm a girl, of like, oh, why are you in here in the computer science lab? Are you taking an intro course? And I'm like,
Mhm.
no, dude, I'm taking a 300 level course. Like, I'm in the major. How about you
Yeah.
go check the syllabus?
Yeah.
Or like whatever list they have of students. But anyways, yeah, there's just wanted to give him a shout out for that because we need that in the industry. Looping it back around to our podcast and stuff, like, like you said, like when you think of somebody, you immediately think of like an image of who they are in your head and stuff. But
Mhm.
people surprise you. There's a lot
Yeah.
of people don't think like I game on, like, maybe some people don't think you do CrossFit or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
So, like, yeah, that's the 100%. Don't judge someone by their image or their cover. But to tackle something and just to let me disclaim this, okay? I know he's joking around with me, and I know he's not like for real. But I know some people might take it seriously.
yeah.
Is Taryn brought up a point where it's like I'm crying right now because he called me conventional, and I know he's joking around. I know
Yeah.
he doesn't really all that care. But to disclaim this, I'm not saying going conventional is wrong,
Hmm.
right? I'm just saying comparatively, if you went and got a CS degree,
It's wrong. I'm just kidding.
if you went to go get a CS degree, comparatively to if you are self-taught, okay? Take someone who went the full 4 years and take someone who self-taught themselves for however long, right?
Mm-hmm.
In retrospect and statistically speaking, it's probably easier for the guy or girl who went the conventional route to get a job than the self-taught. Am I wrong?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Thank you. Okay. That's my argument there is that, if you went conventional, I'm not saying, sure, there might be some places that don't just hand out these connections or hand out this ease of transfer from school to job,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you compare the both, it's so much easier for you to have that piece of paper right behind you and gives you that quote unquote credibility,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to someone who has self-taught themselves for however long.
Yeah.
Okay. And also to circle back, because I remembered my point.
See?
I remembered my point, but then after that we can go into some Q&A because I know someone or some people will have some questions, and then we'll
Yeah.
get ready to close. Oh, what was my point? The point was my gripe with the CS degree.
Mm-hmm.
Not my gripe, but I think the things to take into account is how long it takes. And we touched on this. It's 4 years.
Yeah.
Potentially, 6?
Mm-hmm.
Right? In order for you to leave school with a degree and get into the workforce. Granted, yes, you could and should be going into internships, getting some experience in the actual industry and doing that kind of stuff. But it still takes a minimum of 4 years for you to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Self-taught doesn't matter. That time is on you. And that's what I like, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's still life to balance. Obviously, there's family, other variables that play into that where you might not have enough time. But the one thing I love about self-taught is it depends on the amount of work you're willing to put in, how much work you actually do, and how willing you are in order to achieve this thing. Because if you're dedicated and you want to bust your ass to get this thing, you can get it in less than a year. I'm not saying that's easy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you right now, it's gonna be hard as hell, but it's doable.
Yeah.
You can't fast track through a CS degree. You have to grit through 4 years. Argue that. Again, I'm going to this uneducated.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think I just thought of a good friend of mine who actually her junior year dropped to part-time in school because she got a job as a no, not a developer, as an engineer for Intel. And
Through an
that's
internship?
no, it wasn't. Wait, did you ask if it was an internship? Sorry.
Like, did it
No, it
start as an internship and then go into full
I think
time?
she got an internship the summer before,
Mm-hmm.
and then she had finished like a couple other like coding classes. Like I think it was like they taught a cybersecurity class that year or something like that. And once she was done with that, she got an offer.
Nice.
And so in terms of like fast tracking and stuff like that, like I agree in a sense that self-taught takes off the fluff. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
But like
You
as
get straight to the
somebody,
point.
yes. But as somebody, like I said, like, you know, on the other side of it, who loves structure and like thrives off of structure, um, that's something that, you know, the degree brings and school brings in general.
Mm-hmm.
But the same thing, the last bit you said about like, you got to grind and you got to want it, same exact thing applies to the degree. Where
Mm-hmm.
you got to grind, you got to want it because there are going to be a million people out there with the same degree as you. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, like, yeah, like college brand names, like if you got it from USC, if you got it from, you know, X, Y, and Z. I feel like the biggest difference between small schools and like big name schools like UCs and I can't speak for like the Ivy Leagues and things like that, but I feel like personally, it's the network and the connections that you get out of that. And so for her being in like the Portland metro area, she was lucky enough that Intel was right there. Similarly, there was somebody that was like a bio major, CS minor that got a job as a engineer. I think she was like a junior developer or something at Nike.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you know, there's and my school is not like a big brand name school, but they got into big brand name companies.
Yeah.
One with the full degree, and actually, she didn't even have her full degree yet. She's just about to graduate. But the other, you know, with just the minor. And so, you know, in that sense, like with the thing I like about, you know, with the degree and stuff is the structure. Now, if you're going to go self-taught route and you're somebody like me who needs the structure, you got to be ready to sit down and make the structure yourself
Mm-hmm.
because it's tough out here.
It is, and
um,
that's part of
yeah.
the hustle is, you know, when you realize not that you're on your own, but you need to make things happen on your own.
Oh, yeah.
You need to create connections and network with people on your own. You need to
Mhm.
find courses and tutorials on your own. You
Mhm.
need to be making projects on your own. And
Yeah.
that's the one thing that I love about self-taught, but can be scary about self-taught
Yeah.
is, you know, for the people that don't like doing that and maybe don't have the discipline or the motivation to do that, it's very easy to give up.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Mhm.
that's the one thing is it's easy to give up because you're losing what? Right? You
Yeah.
lost maybe a little bit of time trying to do this thing. Whereas if you were to leave college, like you wasted up all that money or
Yeah,
not
and
wasted,
that's
but
it.
you spent money on that degree. So you want to finish it, right? Like you want to
Yeah.
go in for what you paid for, not just
Mhm.
leave.
Yeah, but
Um,
also at the same time, like you got to make sure that if you go into college for a degree, especially a computer science degree, it's also very easy to just kind of sit back and fall back and be comfortable with knowing that after these 4 years, I will get a job. Like, no, no, no,
mhm.
no. That's not how it works. Like, yeah, you
Well,
may
for the
have a
smart
piece of
people like
paper.
you can do that. I can't
Yeah.
do that.
No, but you still have to use those resources that you capitalize on those. Like
Yeah.
take advantage of those because you have those things for a reason. Like
Mhm.
Justin said, you don't have to, you know, sit down and make the projects or find the projects yourselves. They're being handed to you. So you better bust your ass and sorry, excuse my French, but like, you know,
No, you could.
bust your ass and learn, you know, how to do all these things. Talk to your professors. At the end of the day, you get in what you put out. So similar to like self-taught, I don't think I'd ever be here if I never reached out to you. And I
Mhm.
reached out to you in the very beginning about 6 months ago of my own journey of wanting to pursue front end development. And I reached out to you and I was like, hey, you are a little bit more experienced than I am. And it just bonus, you're from the Bay Area, you know, that kind of thing. And now you know, like I have Sean, I have Chris Sean as a resource as well. So, you know, it's all these different and in a sense that's my own networking, right?
Mhm.
But it would have never happened if I didn't put myself out there and was like, hey, this is something that I'm trying to do. Can you help me out? And you know, like it doesn't have to be Justin, it doesn't have to be Krishan. It could just be reach out to whoever you see. Just look around in your area, look around in your friends list. I'm sure there's somebody out there doing the thing that you want to do. and make sure that if you don't have the resources like college provides to network and, I don't know, job hunt or whatever it may be, the internet's free.
Yeah.
Go look around.
That world's your oyster. But like at the end of the day, regardless of whether you go computer science or the degree route, or if you go self-taught boot camp, doesn't matter. I think the one thing is, and should be the biggest takeaway, is regardless of that route, you still have to bust your ass and move.
Oh, 100%.
If you're gonna take away anything, just realize that nothing's gonna be handed, and like you still got to work for it, you still got to hustle, you still got to grind. Obviously, take into account mental health and all that stuff, and just like not identifying yourself as something else that you're not. Like be you, hustle, grind, but keep your identity, keep who you are as a person, and make those decisions for yourself. And I think that whatever route you go, most of you, if not all of you, will strive well in the industry and do well.
Yeah.
But that being said, let's do some quick Q&A.
Yeah.
I know someone donated. Otho, if you're still here, thank you for the 5. He asked at Riki, what advice would you give to someone living in Portland about the web development / jobs community?
Ooh. So I don't know who I was talking to about this. It might be the Discord. Might have been on my stream or something like that. But I was talking about Portland because I think we were talking about like Silicon Valley being like the big tech valley, right, of like the United States. But also I was talking about how Portland is up and coming with all their tech industry stuff too. I know Portland, like I said, has Nike, has Intel, Amazon. Simple banking is an app banking type of thing. They're based in Portland. Garmin, the people who make your GPS and your planes and things like that, they're up in Salem, Oregon. I would say to as a web developer, I think the thing in Portland that's very popular is to kind of just put yourself out there in a sense where like don't be scared to reach out to like certain communities if you want to work for them. So like if you want to build websites, and the thing about Portland is they're very big on what do you call this? Like small businesses and like local, like being local and things like that. So I would like capitalize on that. Like that's kind of the community, and like, keep Portland weird. So if you're doing something like super unheard of or whatever, if your designs are like kind of, it doesn't fit a certain aesthetic or whatever it may be, Portland is the place for you. Like Portland is a place for everybody. And I think that's like what I really loved about the area. But also I would reach out to not just the Portland area, but like go around. Like I used to live not even in Portland. I wasn't in the city. I lived in a Hillsborough, Beaverton area. So it's kind of more west of Portland. But there were a lot of opportunities over there, a lot of small companies, like tech companies. Like I said, Simple Banking was in the Portland area. So that's my advice is don't be afraid to kind of, I don't know, like go against the grain. I know we've said that before. But really in that community, like you will be welcomed 100%. Also, like Portland there's a lot of like really nice people in the Pacific Northwest. So if you were just sit down, like if you are in a coffee shop, granted after COVID-19, and you see somebody working on code and you want to ask them a question like, hey, who are you working for? What are you doing? Kind of thing. Make that connection. Don't be scared, because that is the place to do it. Like maybe not LA, because I feel like LA people are like, oh, don't bother me. But Portland people for sure, like they wouldn't mind.
LA people are always busy.
Yeah.
Like, are you really though? Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, I get you in Hollywood, but
that would be my advice.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think that is typically, just subject to Portland area. I think that goes with anywhere any of you guys are. Is don't be afraid to be open. Ask questions when you see someone with a common interest. Maybe right now it might be a little bit weird, but when things start to normalize and get a little normal again, then that's just when you see someone in a bar. I saw someone the other day.
Yeah.
Not the other day. My friend says the other day all the time, but it was like a month ago. It's just like doesn't make any sense. Like maybe a month ago, though. I saw him coding something in a bar. right? And I was just like, oh, yeah, I wonder what he's making right now. I can't go up to him and ask, but I'm I'd be curious to know what he's building right now because
Yeah.
it's definitely something Android because he's building an Android studio,
Hmm.
but don't know. Looks kind of cool, but that's like that
Yeah.
kind of the thing. It's like when you see someone with a common interest, and I feel like people are very standoffish about that. Like it can be very weird approaching people because a lot of coders, and again, it goes with the identity thing, but I think it's very, very accurate. Is like most of us are introverted by
Yeah.
default. So, we don't want to go reach out. And I think part of that introvertness also plays into the fact that you don't ask questions enough. And
Yeah.
me and Chris touched on that before. Was the one thing you need to be doing more of is you need to be asking questions.
And the thing is, too, just to kind of add on to the Portland thing, is go to the job fairs. Go,
Hmm.
seek it out. Nike hosts them all the time. Intel
Aaron,
does
what am I
too.
doing here? Nike?
Yeah,
Come
dude,
on.
right? I know, dude. Honestly, speaking of Portland, like it's so much cheaper. Ugh, we're not gonna talk about it because it's gonna
Nah,
make me so sad.
we ain't gonna talk about it. We ain't gonna talk about it.
But yeah, go to those. They have job fairs, and even if you don't like get a job right away off of those job fairs, make those connections, get those cards, get those emails. Like these people work at Nike, and at the end of the day, Nike is one of those places. To be honest, in my opinion, it's like the way you get in is through networking. It's like
Mhm.
most people, that's how they get in. And even if you're working, like some people work retail first, like they go into the employee store and then they get into corporate. Um, but like I said, you got to go to those networking like events and things, and really just get names, introduce yourself. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's my advice.
Before I add on to that, I just want to say anyone in the chat, if you guys have questions, just let me know right now before we close out soon. Otherwise, we'll close it out. But to add on to that, the job fairs, if you are make use of Facebook in this case too. I'm sure there's a bunch of groups out there that are, like Portland coders or whatever. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Oh,
Like, I
yeah.
don't know what's out there, but look up what's out there. See if there's, I think Cass just said that there are potentially meetups that you can go to in Portland. Maybe not
Mhm.
now, but maybe they're virtual meetups. Make use of social media, Twitter,
Oh, yeah.
Instagram, right? There's probably so many different groups within those specific platforms where you can kind of connect with other people, right?
Mhm.
Like same thing with me and Riki. We're both from the Bay, and that's instantly like
A
a
connection.
like a connection
Yeah.
and a part of a community where I now know multiple people just through Instagram that are from the
Mhm.
Bay or
Yeah.
currently live in the Bay that are also doing the same thing, and we all
Oh,
do that same thing, right? Like we're all from San
yeah.
Jose or San Francisco, close enough, right? Like
Yeah.
we're all from that area. Taryn, he's one of them, right?
Yeah.
And I have a couple people in mind, but that's
Mhm.
kind of the thing is connect with other people, see where they're from, get in Discord servers. We have a Discord server too where I'm like literally watching the general chat, and there are a couple of people in there that are like figuring out things about people that they don't know, and they're now connecting about it because there's a common interest or they're from the same area or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like I think the main thing is here, and you touched on this, was opening up and like actually putting yourself out there
Yeah,
without you,
of
like if
course.
you are one of those people, and I used to be one of those people where
Mhm.
it's like you just go into communities and you lurk and you don't talk and you just watch the conversation, like nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of those people expect things to come their way just by being in it, but you got to
Mhm.
be active. And that's kind of the
Yeah.
one things about building up a personal brand, especially, right? Like that's the one thing I figured out was if I'm going to start this thing, I really have to put myself out there so people know me. Like
Oh, yeah,
I can't
100%.
just start this thing, post pictures and be like, "Oh, people are just going to flood my way." Like it's no. Like
Heck
you have
yeah.
to be
Mhm.
engaging with the community. You have to
Yep.
be talking with other people, DMing people, you know what I mean? Like all that stuff and making your presence known, which is my one big thing about if you want to grow social media or you want to grow a personal brand is you need to make your presence known. And if no one knows you, then nothing's going to happen.
Exactly. Somebody asked if it's true that you can't pump your own gas in Portland. That's very off topic, but I feel like it's a fun question. The answer is yes, you can't. Um, so you actually drive up to the gas station and you just pop your trunk, roll your window down, give them your card. Or if you want to put your card in yourself, you could do that yourself. But it's a funny story because what I heard, I don't know if this is true, but from what I heard, the story that goes around is that somebody was actually smoking cigarettes while they were pumping gas and lit a gas station on fire. And I'm sure multiple people on fire. And that's a reason why they don't have the self pumping, like self service, like gas stations. So it's just a really interesting kind of off topic thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's so funny whenever I drive up and down from Portland to here that like as soon as we hit like Eureka or like Redding area up in like northern Cal, like I sit there for a hot minute and I'm like, when are they gonna pump my gas? And I'm like, oh crap, I'm in California and I have to
I
like
gotta
get
do
out.
this myself.
Yeah, but it's the same thing when I drive from like Portland to Seattle, because like Seattle, Washington, like you have to pump your own gas.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's very fun and interesting. So I thought I'd just
So
kind of talk
weird.
about
So weird.
that. I think it's also for not job security, but for job
Oh, like
opportunities.
yeah. You just
Mhm.
give those people a job. I forget
Yeah.
where it was we were driving, but we were somewhere and they were doing that too. Where it was so weird seeing people like just next to the thing getting ready to go. I'm like, bro, like I'm gonna pump my own gas. Like, what are you
Dude,
doing here?
it makes me feel like, you know, that scene in Cars. You've watched Cars, right?
Yeah, of course.
So that scene in Cars where like he pulls up to like the
Yeah.
pit stop and they
Yeah.
like
I know what you're
run
talking
around.
about.
It makes me feel like that
Mhm.
because like as soon as I pull up, they're all like, you know, like somebody is like racing to go to my car, and I'm just like, oh my god, this makes me feel like I'm like racing
I know. I
somebody.
get on edge. I'm like, yo, I don't have a weapon on me, bro. What if this guy attacks me? Like, what's he doing walking
Oh
up
my
to
god, you're from
so
San
close to my
Jose.
car? Like, I can't. Let's just stay away. Like 6 feet apart, dog.
Yeah.
One question that we got was, as a front end dev, is it the norm to know both front end and back end? And my answer to that straight off the gate is, I don't think you should look at things like there's a norm to it
Hmm.
within that aspect of it. I think it's okay. There's nothing wrong with knowing backend as a front end dev. At that point, you're just looking to become a full stack dev or switch to backend.
Yeah.
Like it goes back onto the topic we touched on like in the middle of the podcast, where it was being open-minded to experimenting and just trying things out. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with going back end if you already know front end. There's a problem with trying to learn both at the same time. That's not normal. I would say focus on one
No.
over the other. But
Yeah, I
if
agree.
you are thinking about going back end, then experiment with it, Steven. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
Hmm. Definitely. I agree. I mean, I went back end to front end, right? And I feel like it's a little easier to go from back to front.
Mhm.
Um, just because like back end is more of like the behind the scenes stuff that's going on. And so when you go the front end route, you know a little bit more of like what's going on. And I
Mhm.
think that was a topic that I didn't get to touch on earlier, but the difference between you and I, and when I just hop into your stream and like I see you coding and stuff, is the coding standards that I learned in college.
Oh,
That is the one thing like I'll give to college, and like, you know, having that, and that's the
you
thing
trying to
that
say
was
my
like,
code's bad? Huh?
your code is unreadable and that's
Are you trying
terrible.
to say my structure is shit?
No, but I think it's just like when it comes to like an understanding of certain things, and that's where that like I was guided through it, right?
Yeah.
And like the thing about that though, is that, you know, our department had a very strict coding standard, and it wasn't just how to write your good, clean, readable code.
Mhm.
It was which you all should do is write good,
Mhm.
clean, readable code.
Mhm.
But also just like the deadlines and things like that. Like I had a project that ran fine, but I forgot to compile one of the files for that project. It was I think it was like a hash tables assignment or something like that.
Oh,
And
what now?
hash tables?
What?
I'm not gonna get into hash tables.
Eh,
It's part of the data structures class.
I know what a hash.
But prior to that, it was it's I believe it was in C.
Hmm.
But I didn't, you know, like if you think about it, it's like you had to submit one big folder in order for your program to run, and I didn't. Within that big folder, you have those mini folders, and I didn't include because I forgot we were like running it in the command. Um, like I've been so far from it that I don't remember what it's called. But we were like it wasn't just like a drag and drop thing. You had to like run it in the command line,
Mhm.
and I forgot to add that like small little folder, and my program didn't run. And so I turn it in, I get my grade back, and I got a D. And I'm like, why do I have a 64? This thing ran fine. And it was the last assignment of the semester. So like when I went to go talk to my professor, he's like, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it. you can't resubmit it. I'm like, it runs fine on my computer.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is the very tricky part about, and now having to navigate through that in getting your degree, is that like you kind of have to rely on somebody's like grades or validation. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Or it's like that's another thing that I will say to people is that when if you're in your when you're in university, do not get caught up in grades. It's not a measure of your ability as a coder or as a student in
Hmm.
general. Because like I got a C in data structures, but I freaking balled out. Like I made an airport simulation and all these other things. C's get degrees. But yeah, just
That.
don't get too caught up in all of those numbers. At the end of the day, I knew I knew that my program ran fine, and it's like it was fine. But for the future, now I know to like double check things, and that's the lesson that I learned from that.
Yeah.
So
I
uh,
think I think a big thing from that is that's the one thing I actually really really disliked about school as well, is that my value and my what am I trying to say? Like my skill set is determined based off of one person's opinion.
yeah.
And I hated that about school. So like that's what deterred me away so much. So yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Let's see. I don't think
And
we
I
have.
I
Oh,
would
go ahead.
say from back end to front end, um, I highly recommend all back end coders to learn front end. Um, I don't think it's a necessity, but I think it's like recommended because if you're gonna run a program, you kind of want to learn a little bit about what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like from and this is kind of like UI UX type thing. But you kind of want to learn how that actually is going to look like, and you got to take into account that yeah, you're creating a computer program, but humans are ultimately going to be the ones to like use your app, your site, whatever it may be. So you got
Hmm.
to take that into account. And so that's the only thing I would say about like as a backend coder, it's important to learn those things. And that's like the design thinking human computer interaction class that I learned.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And I could say the same thing about front end, right? I think it's very beneficial for front end developers to learn a little bit, if not like more about backend, to understand how that kind of structure and system works, how
Yeah.
that data comes in, and how we as front end devs can manipulate that data and now show it dynamically or in a certain way for front end users or
Hmm.
clients to see, and being able to do that, because a lot of what we work with eventually is data, right?
Oh
Is
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, especially if, for example, if you're using React and GraphQL, right? Like, you kind of have to understand how all of that works. So,
Yeah, I think that's the thing too that I was very thankful about in school is that I learned the very, very, very fundamentals, like the zeros and ones and
yeah,
8-bit
God,
and all of
yeah,
that. And it was a hassle, but at the end of the day, it was to me, I like understanding things in and out. And that's why
hmm,
like in my freelancing, I, took the course from Kyle. I decided to like bite the bullet on that because I didn't want to be a freelancer that was just gonna like drag and drop certain things and or even just like that will code things around. I wanted to be the type of developer that understood the ins and out of what the heck I was working with
yeah,
and what the heck I was like pouring out to my clients.
hmm,
Because I just didn't feel comfortable like asking somebody for a certain price, knowing I didn't even understand it. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, I poured my time and money into it, but do I even really understood or understand what I just did? So
exactly, yeah.
yeah.
One question that might be intended for you, because I don't really know,
Mhm.
is from Raphael: does GPA matter for internships?
Some do, but the minimum is usually 3.0, which is
Oh,
like
I wouldn't have got it. I wouldn't have
but
got it.
some do. I would look into it. I would just look at kind of like the posting. If there's nothing on there, I would go ahead and email. There's usually like an email for somebody like a not a recruiter, but whoever is organizing the thing. I would reach out and ask. And if for some reason, let's say you're like at a 2.9 or a 2.8, whatever it may be, you're not quite at the minimum. I would give yourself the opportunity to like explain that, like because life happens, and I think that's the thing people forget, that college is college, but also college is run by people.
Yeah,
So if you want an internship but you're like at the beginning of your junior year and all of sophomore year was really hard for you mentally, or like something happened in your life, I would send an email, explain your situation, and 9 times out of 10 these people are pretty they're pretty understanding. And if not, then maybe you didn't want to work for them anyway.
Hmm.
I would look somewhere else. But short answer to that is it depends. uh, there's some that require it, and then there's some that don't really care.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, I can't really answer that just because any of the possible internships I even applied for were out of school. So
Yeah.
my GPA, regardless of how abysmal that thing is, I don't even want to look at my transcripts because of how bad they were. I'm thinking about doing a potential video on that because my GPA got so bad that I think it's worth telling.
Oh God.
And I probably make a video on that. So, uh, but I would say, even if there is a requirement, I would potentially just say, I would say even apply for it anyways too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like
And that
just
goes
go
to like
for it.
jobs too. Like
Oh yeah,
a lot of
100%.
if you look at it, it says most of the time now it doesn't even say requirement. It says like recommended
Preferred.
qualifications. Yeah, preferred. So like at the end of the day, like you might not even need it. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I mean, like, just take those even if you feel like you're unqualified. And I feel like
mhm.
that's kind of what we talk about too in Twitter dev or IG dev, or if you ask anybody else that's kind of, has a presence in the scene, is, it apply to jobs or apply to internships that if you qualify or have at least 50% of the quote unquote requirements.
Oh
Like there's
yeah. And
no way you're gonna have 100%. And if you do, you're bullshitting yourself.
speaking of our point earlier too of like hustling and like putting in that work, if you know that you don't meet the requirement, whatever the minimum is, put in the work and write a cover letter.
Mm,
And like I said, email the people. But I feel like cover letters are a good way to go to without like having to actually email somebody individually, because most of the time these job postings have a spot for it. So, if for any reason you feel like you're not qualified, if anything, if you are qualified, it'll just even like it'll make you even more qualified,
mhm.
or it's just an extra thing that a lot of people may not want to do, but I see the power in cover letters. Like I applied for an internship in Portland, and unfortunately it didn't work out for me, and maybe it was a good thing that it didn't. But it was like a web development company. It was my junior year, and I wrote them a cover letter saying, hey, I haven't taken a lot of classes in CS, but I've taken a few design courses, and X, Y, and Z, whatever my passion was, I want to learn more about the company and what the industry is about and things like that. And I didn't get the internship, but I did get a reply. And 9 times out of 10, you don't even get a rejection.
Yeah,
You get ghosted. But
yeah,
they wrote a reply saying, hey, thank you for explaining your um, situation and all these other things. And also that it was because they were moving locations. So it's just kind of like, unfortunately for me, it didn't work out. But yeah, so I would say that's got to be the hustle. Like, that's the
yeah,
hustle part of it. You got to put in the
yeah.
work.
Sounds like my dating life. Next question is from Steven again. This is for you. What was your first day of work like as a dev?
As a dev,
I feel like that's like a
like self-taught dev.
yeah. I mean, you worked at an agency though, right?
Oh, you're right. I did.
Uh,
Um, wow, I forgot about that. But also, I completely forgot that I also did a work study thing at school, and I was part of the team that redesigned our like school website. So
mm,
like if you go to I don't know if I want to drop the school that I went to, but if you go to pacificu.edu, I worked on that. It's like flex.
nice.
So I worked on that. That thing was so hard to work with, so annoying. The
But
design
like,
is I hate the design. I hate it.
don't worry about
But
that. Don't worry about that.
um but anyways,
What was your day like? First day.
Um, I would say first day was I didn't really have a first day. I can't say I have a first day, but like first couple of days or so, it was definitely nerve. Here, you know what? I'll talk about the first time I ever worked with a client. Um, because I feel like that was kind of like what my first day really was, because it was the first time that I was applying like web dev type of skills to something that I was working on.
Hmm.
And I think that it was definitely nerve wracking. I
Hmm.
was so nervous, and I didn't know how to like handle myself as like I'm going in front of this person being like, hey, this is the website I'm like making for you. Also, it's X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
And no, I don't have certifications, but I have these skills. and things like that. I think it was definitely nerve-wracking. But the one thing that helped me a lot was just the organization of it all and making sure that I kind of had my ducks in a row. So with that conversation, like, yes, I didn't have certifications, or I wasn't, I don't know, I didn't know certain languages that they thought I needed for this kind of thing, but I knew how to back myself up.
Mhm.
I was like, hey, I may not know, JavaScript or whatever it is that WordPress runs on, that kind of thing, but I know how to run WordPress. It's
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
I know how to put your information in there.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely nerve-wracking. Even in the agency, like, it was kind of hard at first to be like, oh, I'm not as experienced. I feel like a lot of people thought I was for some reason. But I was like, oh God. But at the end of the day, you figure it out. And if you
Yeah.
don't know, ask. If you don't want to ask, Google it.
That's
Yeah.
another thing, is being okay with not knowing.
Oh, 100%. You need
Because I
that.
feel like, especially on someone's first day, I can't say I've ever been on a first date because your boy hasn't gotten the job yet. But uh, you know, you have to be okay with not knowing something. Like,
Mhm.
me and Chris talk about it. I'm sure a bunch of other people talk about it.
Yeah.
Danny has most likely talked about it. Is, Googling is your friend. Googling is like the number one thing we do. I was actually gonna make a TikTok skit about that. I think I still need to do that.
Do
But
it.
um, yeah, like, you just need to, if it's
Yeah.
nerve wracking in those kinds of situations, just look it up. Like, there's no harm in that. No one's
Eh,
gonna think you're an idiot or
Yeah.
that you're unqualified because you had to Google something. Like, the fact that
Yeah.
you could have found your answer on Google probably means more than, like, not knowing outright.
Absolutely. And I will say too, like, when I worked at Apple, that's something that I could talk about. When I worked at Apple, I learned that you learn through your mistakes.
Mhm.
Like, I God, especially Apple, where you have to know a bunch of products and the ins and outs. God, what was the phone that came out that year? I think it was the 10, and it was the first phone that didn't have the home button. So yeah, it was the first
Was
phone
it
that
the
didn't have the
10?
home button.
Oh, the
Yeah,
8 did have it, huh?
yeah, the 8 had it.
Yeah.
So that's so funny. You skipped over the 9. But anyway, I just realized that. But yeah, so a lot of people had questions. A lot of people had they were freaking out over, like, like the facial recognition thing and how safe it is, all these other questions and things like that. And at the end of the day, I just had to sit down and be honest with myself and be like, ma'am, sir, I don't know the answer to this question. But my trainer does. So
Yeah, I used to do it all the time at the computer store. Because,
yeah.
like, there's a lot, again, to your point, there's a lot of product to know at a computer store. Like with Apple, same thing. There's just a lot of product to know and, like, different technical questions that you may not be ready for. For
Mhm.
me, there was always something new coming out at the store, so it was just like, oh, okay, well, new Ryzen's came out. I don't know anything about the 1700. At the time, it was a 1700, 1700X, 1500. So this was all Gen 1 Ryzen chips, but I knew
Mhm.
nothing about them. I just
Yeah.
knew they were fresh on the market and they were looking to really, really push. Not Skylake. What was it? Not Coffee Lake was before that. I don't remember. Anyways, that current chipset at the time from Intel, and people would come in and it was just like, I don't know. I don't know what was happening.
Yeah.
There was a time where Gen 2 now comes out and people were having issues because their boards were not working because you had a BIOS update before Gen 2, but no one knew that. So it's just like, you have to be okay with Googling these things and just, like, owning up to those, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to your question. Let me ask
Mhm.
one of my coworkers. Let me Google this really quick. If they get
Yeah.
frustrated with you, whatever, just
Yeah.
do your thing. Yeah, like, it's
That's
a
a
learning
free
experience for you. If they don't have the patience for it, that's not on you.
Exactly. And as a freelancer, it's very important to be transparent with
Yeah,
your clients.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. Um, Sarah is asking, Riki, would you ever go into the data structure slash data analyst field? Thoughts?
I think my answer to that, I'm gonna stick with my gut, is yes. That
Hmm.
I think I really love data structures. Like I said, in my
You're
head
psychotic, but keep going.
in my head, I really enjoyed it. And I talk about this project all the time, like that airport simulation thing.
Mhm.
Um, Pretty much the project was like, you had to display and calculate, like, certain scenarios of, like, airport stuff. So, like, if a plane is coming in, you have to make sure that the runway is, like, clear.
Mhm.
So, and then if the runway is not clear, you got to display like a certain number, like 0 or 1 or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And it was intense and it was a lot, but I so much enjoyed it for some reason.
Well, I feel
And
like you there's lives on the line, so there's pressure on that.
yeah, and I mean, I don't know, but I really enjoyed the data structures part of it. And
Yeah.
my senior year, they actually came out with a data science major.
Uh-huh.
And my friend was telling me, she was like, I think that if you maybe had stayed a couple years, you would have really enjoyed the data science like part of it. Because even in like exercise science or kinesiology, like all my projects were like stats and like statistic based. It was all like analyzing the data and like figuring out, you know, how you can like make conclusions out of it and stuff like that. But yeah, that was, I know you're like, oh, how you do that? But I don't know, for some reason, I just really enjoyed it.
For the audio listeners, I'm shaking my head and my face has a bunch of disgust because when I hear data structures and when I hear data science, I think math and I don't like math.
um, yeah.
I,
So my
I
answer would be yes.
I thought about making a series on my YouTube channel and putting myself at just in the worst position ever of teaching myself data structures and like computer science theory on a whim. And that would be, I think, hilarious to watch me suffer through trying to figure all of that out.
Dude, it's not bad. Just do it.
I think it's going to be really bad. But anyway, let's see. What language you learned at first as a self-taught dev? I'm gonna think about programming languages at that point, but my first was JavaScript, so that was my first language. What about you?
As a self-taught, oh god.
As a self-taught dev.
I think HTML, CSS.
But you know JavaScript too, right?
I know a little bit of JavaScript. It's been years, so I'm super rusty.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Then
I know those for sure.
okay, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Raphael is also asking, as a self-taught, how do you choose what you want to learn next and how extensive into that topic you should go? So that's interesting. There's obviously like, you know, the roadmaps that people go by, whether or not you're going front end or you're going back end. People kind of have those predetermined routes that you go. As far as the front end side of things, because this is primarily what we're talking about, you know, it's HTML, CSS. You go into JavaScript because, I mean, that's kind of what runs the world in the front end side of things. And from there, you kind of go and decide what frameworks you want to work with. And at that point, that's a lot of experimentation again. So depending on the market, whatever it is in your area or whatever it is you actually find enjoyable, right? Like for React or Vue or Angular. In my area, being the Silicon Valley, you see a lot of React and surprisingly a lot of Angular. There might be some startups that are starting to move over to Vue. So if you want to go with what the market's asking, then that's how you determine what it is you do. And as far as how extensive it is, you go learn the basics of it. At the end of the day, it's just JavaScript. Build some things and see what you can get with that. Again, play around with some of the frameworks. There's new ones like Svelte is coming out. That one's a good one. If you're looking to make websites, Gatsby.js and Next.js are looking good. There's a couple other things out there that I'm maybe blanking on right now, but with how extensive it is, you go, that's on you. Like, if you really, really want to dig into this thing, then dig into it. But at the very bare minimum, if you want the minimum work requirement, learn the basics of that framework / library, and that's just hit the minimum at least and build something.
Yeah. I'm going to change my answer.
I'd like to retract my previous statement.
Yes. No, it's just because like I'm still in the beginning stages of my self-taught journey. So as far as languages go, like I can't really say I've learned anything too much yet. But I will say the first language I learned was C++.
Yuck. I'm just kidding. There you go.
C++ and C. Yeah. Those were my
You self-taught those?
C damn near. Yes. So C++ was taught to us like actually sit down in a classroom. But C I learned in data structures. And my professor was like, you know C++, you can figure it out. And so I was just like, oh my God. I was in I forgot what that website is called, but I could see the logo in my head. It's orange.
Oh no, don't do this to me.
You know what I'm talking about? It's like a Reddit for. Oh
But
God, someone in the chat, please.
Is it? It's like a blogging thing, right?
Yes, and then you ask questions of like, oh, how do you
Oh
code
no,
this
what's it
thing?
called? It's like it literally it has a B in it.
A B? I thought it was an S. Stack Overflow?
Oh, that's what you're talking about. I thought we were talking
Okay.
about something else. I thought we
Yeah.
were talking about something else. Damn it,
No,
this
no,
is
no.
live, so I can't edit it out. So
No,
this
it's
is kind of
okay.
awkward. Uh,
Yeah, Stack Overflow was my best friend.
I thought we were talking about Blogger, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh, what? No.
I'm sorry. I messed up. I apologize. Keep going.
Anyways, yeah, so that was I wouldn't say I like self-taught it all the way, but I damn near did because our professor at that point was a 300 level class, and it was a class that like weeds out all the people that can't hang,
I
because
can't hang.
they're very strict and they're very like, this is the first upper division class you get before you get into all the other ones. So I sat through it and dude, it was hard, but
I bet. I
long
bet.
nights in the lab. I literally
In the
I
lab,
tweeted it.
hey.
Right? I tweeted it last night because I was up pretty late and I said, like, this is giving me junior year vibes where I literally went home to brush my teeth and shower. And I come
Mm-hmm.
straight back to school and go to class. And sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
sit here and I'm like, how the heck? How did I do that? And as an athlete too, like how? And I was
Yeah.
working. So it
Yeah.
was just a lot at once, but hey, you gotta grind.
Gotta do it. You gotta do what
Yeah.
you gotta do. Gotta make those
Exactly.
sacrifices.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got here. Couple, like, let's just do one more question.
Okay.
And then we'll close out. There was a question here somewhere. Where'd it go?
Questions up.
Wow, I can't find it anymore.
Do you know what it was like pertaining to?
No, but I will touch on this topic actually, since we'll probably close out after this
Okay.
topic. Akil said, I heard Stack Overflow have some toxic people on there. Listen, anywhere that there is a public forum, there are going to be toxic people.
Twitter, dude.
Dude, I don't even talk about Twitter. Yo, when the election was going on, I did not want to be on Twitter.
Oh god, no.
Yeah. But so that's, if you're dealing with that kind of stuff, I would just say, like, put up a mental filter for those people and kind of disregard them. Stack Overflow is a heavenly place where all of us go to find answers, and we should not let people like take that away just because they're toxic. Like, just because someone like is a keyboard warrior and wants to like talk shit because you're asking a certain question, like, that should not stop you.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like, there's plenty, like, on Stack Overflow especially, like, your question has probably been asked like multiple times in just different ways. And so what I would say is it's not always going to work the first like article you pull up or whatever answer you pull up, the first one. So you kind of have to play around with it, play with your code. And like I said, if you're writing your code based on your standards, and if you're writing good, clean code, the code you may be reading that may work may not be good, clean code. So you got to, change it up a little bit. So yeah, definitely take it with a grain of sand, salt, however you say it.
A sand salt?
Sand or salt. Like, people say grain of sand and people say grain of salt. So
I hear grain of salt. I've never heard grain of sand.
No.
What? Grain of sand. All
people
right.
say salt.
I know. Yeah, that's like 99% of what people say. Good. He said, feels better to hear. I'm just trying to learn. Yeah. Just weed out the negative people. Look, when you're scanning through Stack Overflow or you're going through different forums, just look for what you're looking for.
Yeah, dude, look for the code.
Yeah.
just look for the code. It's in a different font.
Yeah, look for your answer. You know what I mean? Look for that green check mark. That's it. Let's see. Okay, final question, and then we'll close out.
Yeah.
So this is it.
Absolutely.
Okay. At Riki, at Chau Codes, is front end your final destination? Or where do you want to see your software engineering career going? I'll let you go first. I know we ain't about to play rock, paper, scissors on the middle of stream.
All right, I'll go first. Front end final destination as of now, in terms of my goals and kind of where I'm at, I have this goal, and I guess I could touch on this a little bit. You guys are the first people to know about this. I don't even know if my own mom knows about this stuff. But my goal is, I think, Kyle. So I'm taking Kyle. Shameless plug. But I'm taking Kyle's
which you guys can
self.
fiif
Yes.
in the description if you guys want to check that out. He has a
Mhm.
great freelancing bundle that you can buy to literally
Yeah.
get started in freelancing. So if you're curious, it's in the description. Keep
I
going.
don't know how to say Kyle's last name, so I don't want to butcher
Prinsloo?
it. Prinsloo?
That's how
Okay.
I say it.
So he is study web dev, right? That's
Study
his.
web development. That's his handle.
Yeah. So he has this bundle, which is pretty much like teaching you freelancing from like the very basics. You don't need to know I don't even know if you need to know any code at all. I think he will, teach you or at least point you to the right direction to know at least a little bit of HTML and CSS in order to understand kind of what you're doing.
Mhm.
But it's a very good, in my opinion, I'm still in the very beginning. I bought it like yesterday. It's a very good like course, I guess, in terms of like how to learn how to freelance and know your worth as a freelancer and all these other things. So I think I read in like his little landing page and stuff like that most people take about like a year or so, maybe 6 months. My goal, what is now almost December, my goal is to at least have gone through the course by the end of December. Also because I start taking classes again for my prerequisites in PT school in January. So I was like, I'm going to be busy. Plus I still have to take the GRE, which is kind of like it's a standardized test for grad school. But
Mhm.
anyways, so my goal is to at least have gone through the course by December so that in January I am at least applying the principles I have learned from the course to my own freelancing like business. And hopefully by March or February even, I'll be taking off on clients. I've already gotten a few people reaching out to me for client work and stuff like that. And that's kind of the reason why I pushed for this. I actually texted Justin a few days ago, like panicking, like, holy crap, so many people want my service. And he's like, that's a good problem to have. But yeah, in terms
Especially
of
right
like
now.
goals and things, that is where I'm at. I want to do freelancing because I genuinely enjoy doing it anyway, so I might as well do
Yeah,
it for money,
exactly.
and also to put myself through grad school.
Yep.
And in terms of like a long term, like I had mentioned earlier, I am going to physical therapy school and I'm going to be essentially a physical therapist as my main career. But later down the line, I think that I could be a software engineer in that field, so in the medical field. So who knows, like I said, data science was just created as a major last year. So who knows 5 years from now what the heck is new and up when it comes to tech and integrating that into the medical field. But that I think is my kind of main goal. At least for now. You're asking Riki in 2020. That is what I see. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So for me, front end is definitely not my final destination. I don't know what my final destination looks like because I don't really focus on that. I kind of just take it one day at a time. Like I'm doing what I want to be doing right now, but I want to obviously keep escalating that level and just getting to wherever it is this takes me. So I don't know where I want to be. I don't know where my software engineering career is looking like. I don't even know if I want to be like employed. I don't like, you know what I mean? Like there's so many different avenues I'm thinking that I can take with this right now, but I'm definitely thinking about utilizing this space and utilizing the knowledge and future knowledge that I'll attain through front end, through back end, or whatever it is I'm learning, DevOps maybe, to build something tangible, build something that's mine, build a business, or continue creating content around this and using that as a form of, what my career is going to be. Definitely a different route than the typical software engineering career, but I would consider this still some sort of developer career where I am a presence in the social space where I can do something with what I've learned. So ultimately, I'm still figuring all that out. I'm only a year in, so I don't really, no. I'm still in the figuring it out kind of phase. I've passed the learning phase, even though I'm still learning always. I'm past that, learn the basics, build something kind of stuff. Now I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to apply that. So, Raphael, for your question, that's where I'm at right now. Hopefully, and if you are watching the videos and listening to the podcast, you will watch that all unfold. And we'll see where it takes me. But that's where we're at right now. But other than that, I think we were going to close it out. We're about 2 hours.
Yep. We had one more question. Did you want to answer that?
Where is that?
I just have a small question. What to do when you still don't have age to freelance and want to make some money? So I'm assuming
there's no age
in terms of like you're not old enough to freelance.
There's no such thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. But
if there's a problem with you taking in money from clients, then have your parents sign off on that or something.
Yeah, that's
like
what
if
I was
you need a
thinking
bank account, just tell them, hey, this is what you're doing. You don't do it until you have your first client, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Then you already have proof to your parents, if that's the case. I'm assuming that's the case, that you are able to make something of this. Then you go have them open up a bank account for yourself. Don't ever have that money go into theirs. Have them make it to yours, or whatever it is you need to do. If you need to take cash, take cash. Not right now, but eventually, if that's what you want to do.
Because I think the cap to get a bank account of your own, like even with your parents, is I think 13, 14.
Yeah,
it's pretty young. Yeah.
Something like that. If it's a problem of registering your own business, you need to figure that out wherever it is you're from. I don't know what the minimum age requirement is to do a sole proprietorship in the United States. I don't even know if I'm pretty sure there is one, but if you want an LLC or something like that and make this thing official, I would hold off on that because that's a bigger expense than you want at this point. But go sole proprietorship, figure out if you can do that, register it. It's not that expensive to go through that process. Look it up for where you're at. It's going to be different if you're not in the United States, or it's going to differ within states as well. But figure that out. If it's money thing, open up a PayPal. There you go. You don't even need a bank account. Just open up a PayPal. Use Venmo if that's available to you, and figure that out. But you don't put an age on your freelancing career, because you can do it at any age. If it's the legal stuff, then that makes sense. But there's workarounds.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if you want to start small, start small. Go local. There's maybe a coffee shop or something down the street that might need a website, and be like, hey, I'm starting out. This is my career. Talk to them, and they might give you a chance. But anyways.
Yeah, there we go. But that was the last question. We're past 2 hours.
Yes.
Thank you all for coming through. We were averaging around like 60 viewers, so that's like crazy that we could do this live.
Still at 62.
Yeah, that's wild. But thank you all for coming out. This will be out later, not immediately today. I will just kind of go through it. I'll get the audio portion up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever it is. That'll go up later, possibly tomorrow. But Riki, any closing thoughts, statements, anything you want to promote before we end?
All my socials are on the YouTube stream. But for all of those you guys listening, all my socials, literally almost everything besides maybe my gamer tag, is the same. It's Riki MGR, so it's RIKI. That is the right way to spell Riki. And then M as in Mary, GR. So Riki MGR, Instagram, YouTube. Still working on a few things, but stay tuned, you guys. I have some things coming up. Some tech stuff, some PT stuff, some college stories, whatever it may be. I'm a content creator myself, and I'm very excited to be in this space with you guys, and very excited to be in this community. And thanks for hearing me out as well, being here.
Dope. Yeah. So if you guys want to connect with me or Riki even more, we have a Discord channel as well that you guys can find an invite link down below. If you guys are not a part of it, come join. You can talk with us directly. You can ask questions, talk about whatever the hell you want to talk about. We got different channels for that, but it's a good time. Go ahead and go down there. Bunch of different stuff that you guys can check out in the description as well, such as the freelancing program that we talked about from Kyle. If you guys are interested in freelancing and want to know more about that space, you can get it there. And there's a bunch of other things for you guys to check out. But thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining on the live stream. If you join the live stream, if not, you'll catch us later on the audio portion of the podcast. But that's it for episode 20. Thanks, Riki, for joining me.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, everyone else, for coming through. Dooskies. Bam.